All right. That's it. Okay, cool. Thank you. Thank you for stopping by, but I'll let you in later. Okay. My view on the prophets. There's essentially only one chapter in the Torah that tells us that we have some obligation to accept prophets when God sends us prophets. And this chapter has been applied to Mormonism, i.e., Joseph Smith, to Muhammad, to Jesus, and it's Deuteronomy chapter 18. And even groups like Chabad say it's talking about the Rebbe. So everyone has taken Deuteronomy chapter 18 to say there's one individual. However, it's talking about prophets in general. It says, I will raise up from you a prophet, but the first around 8 verses before, it talks about Israel emulating the nations they've displaced, and then God in his mercy brings us prophets to bring us back to Torah. And then it says, and the prophet that speaks what I did not command him. Meaning, first it says that when you begin to do this and that, I will raise up for you a prophet. But then it says, and the prophet that speaks what I have not commanded him. I will raise up a prophet and the prophet that speaks. So it's talking about prophets in general, prophets essentially in plural. This is why we have an obligation to believe in Isaiah, in Ezekiel, in Jonah, not the book of Isaiah, the book of Ezekiel, but the prophethood of these individuals who were sent either when Israel was besieged, when Israel was in exile, or Israel was occupied or about to go into exile. That's what the job of the prophet is. It says in Deuteronomy chapter 12 and the end of chapter 12 going into 13, it says, and if a prophet teaches you something new, something that you did not know from your fathers, i.e., what I expect from you, you take that prophet out and you stone him. Why? Because the job of the prophet, like it says, I believe in Isaiah chapter 8, is there to amplify the Torah. That's it. If his message is basically not reiterating Torah, there's no light in his message. That's why. Now, what do we do with the books of the prophets? The books of the prophets were brought down, were essentially written by rabbis. I understand people don't like the term rabbi too much. Consider judges. The judges wrote down a historical account of the life and times of these prophets, just so we know how God acted and reacted throughout history. That's it. The Torah specifically says don't add books from an authoritative perspective to the Torah. Since these books were unleashed on Israel, that was the birth of sectarianism in the monotheistic world, from the Essenes, the Sadducees, the Gnostics, the Nazarenes, right? But the Pharisees. It was a problem because people started building religion, doctrine, and dogma off the words, the hyperbole, the symbolism, the poetry that appears in the prophets, and not the Torah. The Torah is the basis, and the job of the prophet was only there to point you back to the Torah. This is why prophets only arise when Israel is behaving incorrectly. So this is why the books that we consider prophets today, the books of the prophets, are not the word of God. They're there giving us a historical account of the life and times of that prophets and to point you back to the original word of God, which is the Torah. That's it. That means I believe they're holy books, holy in the sense that they're set apart. The rabbis sanctioned books for us to study, not books to in any way compete with or replace the Torah with. And the average person nowadays makes no distinction between the book of Isaiah and the book of Exodus. And it's antithetical to the Torah that other books that, again, God never sanctioned anyone to write any books of the prophets. He told us to listen to prophets. He never said write books that every generation is going to think that they're in the last days, right? Every generation. How many, there's people who've sold their house, right? It's essentially been a net loss on this planet, the introduction of these books of the prophets, right? Because it's no longer about living an ethical lifestyle, living by the word of God as it appears in the Torah. It's now about coronating some Messiah, trying to stay out of hell, trying to get into heaven. All these notions that have their initial understanding in the prophets and not in the Torah. It seems in the Torah wants you to do the right thing because it's the right thing to do, not because you're trying to stay out of hell and get into heaven. It seems like the silliest way. We dumbified our religion. We have to go back to the Torah. So that's my
So